your contact with spies in this country was because they approached you to join MI6?
Yeah, a long time ago, yeah. When I was 25, a family friend met me at a supper party and sort of liked me. And I wasn't doing anything with my life very kind of meaningful. I just left university. And so he suggested that I should go forward for fast stream diplomatic service, i.e. become eventually an ambassador, a diplomat.
And are they still top graduates and the cleverest people, or what are the cleverest people?
Well, my impression was that they used to get, back in the sort of the heat of the Cold War, so to speak, they weren't getting the best of the best. But then latterly, in more recent times, the sort of very best, the kind of cream of Oxbridge and so forth, are getting grabbed by SIS and the diplomatic services getting this. I mean, they're all very able people, but
before a hedge fund gets over.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's exciting now again.
I think it is. I mean, again, the novels and spy thrillers, as you think about the Bourne movies, for example, give a very accelerated and false impression of how exciting spookery is. I think Le Carre said spying is waiting. I think there's a lot of desk work, a lot of...
God, that's the same as acting.
It's very, I would imagine
it's the same as
quite
being
like,
a cop.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has an impression of an actor's life as being incredibly glamorous and swinging around the world and movie sets and all the rest of it. But
you're sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Do you mind talking about that?
No, I mean, I did very little. I just, in fact, I should clear it up. I never worked for them at all. I think particularly in the States, there's a
you didn't sign the Official Secrets Act?
I did sign the Secrets Act, yeah, but you do that before you've even sort of had a cup of tea. So my first book, A Spy by Nature, the first third of it is a fairly accurate account of what happened to me in this very brief experience that I had with MI6, and then the rest of it is a fiction about industrial espionage and the oil business. But I never went to Fort Monkton. I never fired a handgun or persuaded people in pubs to give me their passports without them knowing or something.
But do they do that? What
That's
sort of Darren Brown sort of routine?
They do. Well, you're one of the tasks. This came out in Tomlinson's book. That they send you into a pub in is it Plymouth or Portsmouth, I forget, and you're just told to cold call, sit next to somebody, and play a part.
Having signed the Official Secrets Act, does that hamper you in your novel writing?
Well, I think that the understanding with anybody who's worked in that area, the great kind of legal loophole, if you like, is that if you make fiction out of it, then you can.
Yeah,
then
you're okay.
Goes. I mean, the classic example is Le Carre, who worked first in MI5 and then in MI6 for I think 10, 15 years.
Right. Okay. I mean, presumably what they're worried about is the enemy getting techniques. We had a bit of that with The Wire. Actually, they had there was a gang that they were watching in New York, and they'd got cameras on them and everything, a drug gang, who were talking about The Wire. They picked up on the surveillance. How cameras and how they, that was how they used burners and mobile phones and all that sort of stuff. And I think they felt that gang or some gangs had wised up a bit because of The Wire.
Dominic, are you sick of talking? Are you sick of talking about The Wire? You've been back now for 3 years.
It had hit England quite hard, and suddenly after 7 years had become successful here. So I took the summer to go around all these festivals and talk about The Wire and get some acclaim, and then I decided after that I wouldn't talk about it anymore. Actually, that's not true. I said I wouldn't talk about it, and I've done nothing else, as I'm doing now, because I've got nothing else interesting to talk about.
But do you miss playing McNulty? I'm quite interested in how you put that character together. Does all of the character come from the writing, or did you have a relationship with the writers on the series that you would say I think that he should go more in this direction?
No. A script comes along and you start reading facts that are actually gleaned from your own life. And my life at the time was fairly disrupted and disjointed. And so I think a lot of that fed into McNulty's and vice versa. So you do start going slightly mad. You're not quite sure where your life ends. And certainly I remember meeting Gandolfini, who played Tony Soprano, and he was in a really bad way by the end of The Sopranos. It's definitely bad for your health, episodic television.
So you would sit down you'd be in a pub with Dennis Lehane, who was writing the scripts for The Wire, or with George Pelecanos, and you'd be chatting about your life, and you'd be having a beer, and you'd be mates, but you'd think that they were listening to you and feeding that into the scripts? Do you think that they were working while they were socialising with you? Or
all the writers are around all the time, and we had quite close friendships with them, so they'd be taking what they wanted, I suppose, and absorbing it. And also, I suppose, you take inevitably an actor takes a character in a different direction to what a writer might have thought of initially, and which must be in one way quite a hard thing, but in another way quite interesting probably for a writer. I mean, when you cast me as Gaddis when they make the film of this, and you cast me as Gaddis, then I'm sure you'll be delighted with some things I do and horrified by others.
We have some other actors interested, but back to you. Yeah.
Unlike some of the, I mean, George Pelecanos was around all the time, but Dennis Lehane only pitched up once, I think, and and that was mainly to play a cameo in The Wire, and he plays this sort of the mean, most pathetic cop of all time, who's the guy who is stuck in the basement with signing off equipment chits, and he's in charge of sort of equipment, and all he does is sit there reading a porn mag, and he sits there munching a donut and reading porn, and I come up and I'm trying to get a radio or some piece of equipment, and Lehane just looks at me. He doesn't look like this sort of slob who'd do that, but he played it brilliantly, just sort of looking up, what do you want, But that
Does all that that you were saying you were coming to his character for some piece of equipment, does surveillance interest you, the thing? Are you worried about the surveillance society and mobile phone triangulation, all the stuff that's in Trinity 6?
Well, I suppose what I did, the little I did learn about that world on The Wire was actually how, I suppose it was from the point of view of a cop trying to get surveillance.
I think spy novelists and television shows like Spooks give an unrealistic picture of how competent the agencies are, or how joined up those cameras are. For example, you can't, like if I leave this building now and walk for half a mile, you can't follow me on a bank of computer screens at Thames House just by sort of pressing.
Right. I can do it in retrospect. I can.
You could piece it together.
But are there rooms underground with banks of TV screens?
Yeah, but I don't.
People are watching.
They're not designed by Ken Adam. They don't look like these sort of magnificent sets.
Right.
But I certainly know.
Have you
they've got the kit. I've heard about them. I've not been in them. To go back to The Wire, nowadays the box set has replaced the novel, I think, kind of conversationally in pubs and when you go into people's houses. So do you feel that? How do you feel about the novel getting replaced by telly in that way?
David Simon wanted to write a complex, highly detailed, convoluted plot, which would not suit watching once a week, like you used to do with television programs. And so the box set really suits the way The Wire needs to be seen.
It is, in a sense, it's like a novel.
Yeah, it's like a novel.
Sit down with it for 7 hours.
You get a few chapters at a go. So, and I think David Simon always regarded himself as a novelist, and always, said things like, "This is what Dickens would have done." So maybe you should get into television.
We should definitely talk about that.
I have a very good idea for Charles.